Good morning, everyone. Good morning. And it's Motzi Gimel Tammuz. So we had for bringing until really late last night. But with God's help, I woke up this morning. And now let us give charity. Charity, the first thing we have to do when we wake up is give thanks to God. You say Mod'ani, you say blessings in the morning, and then you should give charity. Charity, for sure, you should give charity before you pray. Charity. This is in order that there should be peace in the world, and all of the enemies should transform to be non-enemies. However Hashem does it, he'll figure it out. Okay. Now here we're learning this week, maybe the essential point of Judaism is in a story, this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is Chukat, and it talks about the red cow, that if a person becomes defiled with death, so you have to take a red cow and you slaughter it in a certain way, and then you take the ashes. And the end of the thing is that with these ashes, you have to put it into special water. And if a person becomes impure from death, what does it mean, impure from death? He comes in contact somehow or other, either he's in the same room, whatever. They're very detailed and complicated laws. But if a person becomes impure from a dead body, he touched the dead body, lifted up a dead body, was in the same room as a dead body, as that person can never go into the holy temple for the rest of his life. Never for the rest of your life. Unless there is sprinkled on him some water that has in it some ashes from this specially prepared red cow. And if this is sprinkled on the person, it says, that's also a big long process of how it's done. But anyway, it's sprinkled on him on the third day. You start counting the third day and the seventh day, and then that person goes to the mikveh, becomes pure, and then he can go back to the holy temple. That's the law of chukat. That's the paraduma. But in this, the Torah is a big story, right? The Torah is one big story book about what God said to Moses. And that's after Moses was born. And so the first part of the Torah is the story of the creation of the world. What happened? And then there's the story of what God told Abraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov. And finally, what God said at Mount Sinai. And he kept talking to Moses. That's the Torah. The whole thing is one big story. The story. It's a true story. It's an accurate story. In fact, it's an actual story that's happening right now. It's happening right now, but nevertheless, it's a story. So one of the stories that it tells, and everything is relevant to right now, to us right now. So here we have a story which seems just totally not relevant to us now at all. And but it is. So let's see how it is. This is what's the story. The Jewish people were in the desert and they started complaining, which was a Jewish hobby, complaining to this very day. Jewish people like to complain. And God said enough, and he sent these weird serpents, some sort of snakes or alligators. I don't know what they're, some sort of snakes, and anyone who got bitten by the snake died. And so the Jews ran to Moses and said, Moses, what are we going to do? You know, we're being killed in the desert. We're being killed. You took us into the desert. Help, save us. So anyway, it ends up Moses says to God, what can I do? How can I save the people? God said to Moses, make yourself a snake, like one of these snakes, and put it on a pole. And Moses made a snake. He decided to make it from copper. He put it on a pole. Nachash means snake. Nechoshet is copper. So he put this copper, Nachash Nechoshet, he put it up on a pole, on a nace, it says a pole. And anyone who looked at the snake would live. And so the Gemara asks the snake, why don't you tell him to look at God? He says, no, he meant looking up at the snake, because the snake was up, and you looked up, so you looked up at God. So obviously the question is, so who needs a snake? You know, just take a pole with make a big arrow at the end of it, point up, or Moses point up, look at God, tell everybody look at God. What is it? How does the copper snake on a pole heal people? How can that possibly be? Well, and what is the point? What is the point? Why make it? That the Gemara has to say, no, it's not the snake that heals, it's God that heals. And people looked up and they looked up at the heavens, thinking in the direction of the spiritual worlds, and then the God is creating them. Also, He's creating the heavens, and you get a feeling of God. Right? You look up in heaven, you're looking at God. So why even have a snake? Okay, so the Rebbe says the whole essence of what Judaism is and what the creation of the world is, and that's what the Jews are here for, to show why the world is being created. And God is creating the world constantly, every instant, brand new. The only reason He's creating it is so that we should transform bad things to good things. Now, I'm sure that everybody who's listening to this class, and everybody's not listening to this class, has bad things that are happening to them, or you see bad things happening and it makes you feel bad. Everybody has their own bad things that happen, right? And everybody has difficulties in life and bad things in life, problems in life. If no other problem than just the fact that, that we're alive, and and we're going to die, huh? So that's a big problem. You're going to die. Everything you have, it's going to get lost. So you're going to lose. So you say, well, you're going to go to heaven. Well, we started in heaven. Why did God even put us down here before? Why did He take us out of heaven? And then there's guilt feelings, and then there's all sorts of pain and difficulties in the world and disease and things like that. So everybody knows in the family with problems with making money, problems with this. Why are there all these problems? Why did God put the soul in the body? If God would have just left the soul out of the body, so the soul would still be existing, that's what we were before we were born, right? And everything was happy, everything was good. Why did He have to put it in? Well, it says even the angels, they're all happy. When you say in our prayers, Oz v'chedvel mekomo, in God's place, everything is happy and powerful and wonderful. So what does God put us in the world for? So He says that, here we go. This is the point. God puts us in the world to transform the world. We're here in the world to transform the world. In the language of the Zohar, to transform bitterness to sweetness, darkness to light. Therefore, all the bad things that happen in the world, and there's ample bad things, everybody understands what bad things is. All you have to do is open up the news, which I don't advise anybody to do. But if you got nothing better to do, so you open up the news and you see all these terrible things that are happening. Terrible things that are happening in the world. And most of the terrible things that are happening, they don't even don't even let you know. You know what's going on in Sudan and what's going on in these terrible places in Africa, and and how people are being extorted and by the governments and this, etc. They don't tell that. That's not written about. But you don't write about the terrible things. But there's awful, terrible suffering going on in the world. Like in America, they say the veterans are suffering. They're out in the streets, right? These guys gave their lives and their minds are all scrambled from what they saw in World War II and the Korean War and this, and then they're sleeping in the streets. But they're sleeping in the streets. Why are they sleeping in the streets? Who knows? Terrible world. And those things don't bother you. So there's personal things that happen to everybody. Okay. So the Rebbe said, why is it that these terrible things happen? Why? Not only that, the people who everybody admires, well, this guy is handsome and he's rich and he's famous and he's powerful and he's this. Most 99% of them live not happy lives. These big movie stars and rock stars and things like that, but they're not happy lives. So it says, when is a person, why does God do this? It says He's here, He does that in order that we should transform darkness to light. How do you transform darkness to light? How do you do it? And so, well, one way is to think about the source. Is everything just by accident? Did everything just happens? Why is everybody picking on me, like this famous song? Why is everybody always picking on? Why are bad things always happen to me? Why me? Why did my car get cut off? Why did I get a flat tire? Why did I miss the train? Why did I miss the? Why aren't I rich? Why aren't I famous? Why aren't I glamorous? Why aren't I, young, handsome? The million things, right? Why aren't I? So a person can look at it that way. Yes, he can. He can. Or a person can look at it in a totally different way. Maybe God exists, and maybe God wants me to learn something from this. Maybe God wants me to change my attitude. Maybe God wants me to change my attitude. Maybe I should look at things in their source. Look at things in their source. Where does everything come from? Where do these bad things come from? And you start to think, one second, let's take an example, sports, right? The bigger the opposition, the greater the victory. The greater victory. Put on a professional boxer against some, 10-year-old child or something like that. Of course he's going to win, right? He's not going to feel expert. That like this insane thing they got in America now, that men declare they're women and they beat the women in every sport, even though they could never beat a man. They're like, ranked the 500 or something in tennis or something, but in against women, that's what type of a victory is that? That's stupid. He feels a victory. What is this? Because he has how can that person is doubly sick? He thinks he's a man and he thinks he's a victor. He thinks he thinks he's a winner. He's a loser on all fronts, right? All fronts. He doesn't want to confront who he really doesn't want to fight real battles. So it says, so let's take that person, right? The person, he says he's a woman, and therefore, he weighs like 300 pounds and he can lift up, 500 pounds, and women can only lift up, 200 pounds, something like that. And this guy's a big schlub, is this, and he says, no, I am, change my name, right? So instead of, Roger, he's now Roberta or something like that. And so this person, let's forget about the fact that he's sick because he wants to change his identity. But what about victory? Is victory a good thing? Maybe you say, no, maybe victory is a bad thing. You shouldn't have victory. No, that's ridiculous. The whole purpose of us being in the world is for victory, but we have to conquer ourselves. Our biggest enemy is our own self. Our own self. So let's just take this example. The example, the guy, he wants to be a woman. Why does he want to be a woman? Because the guy is sick. He's sick, and then he can win, so he's sick. So, but there's something inside of him. How can he heal himself? Now he's challenged. He's challenged in a way that I'm not challenged. He has to find something really deep inside of himself and to overcome this bad attitude that he's got. He doesn't want to deal with difficulties. He has a feeling, and he just gives himself into this feeling. The famous story with the Rebbe, that somebody came by the Rebbe and said that has these big difficulties. He wants to marry a non-Jewish woman, whatever. And the Rebbe said, I envy you. You are being presented with a test that I never have been presented with. And when a person stands a test in life, as he's elevated to a higher level, a step in higher level. I never had that test, so that I missed that rung in the ladder of self-realization, and I never had that test. Okay, so it says that's the whole idea of us being in the world. There's a lot of bad things in the world, and by our looking and turning and looking at the source, as we get a new thing. What's the new thing? An awareness of the truth. In truth, there really is God. In truth, God really cares. In truth, God really controls everything. In truth, God wants us to reveal who we really are. And a lot of times that can only be done through a test, a difficulty. So either we have to change the thing that we're dealing with, right? The thing that is trying to, let's say something is trying to stop us from learning Torah or doing commandments, so to ignore it. Or sometimes what we have to do is just connect to God and realize, why is this thing happening? Maybe we can transform it. Okay, so that's what we got up to now. I say that God enlivens everything. God creates everything. No bad comes from heaven. This is the example of the zona we talked about yesterday, of the prostitute. The prostitute we talked about yesterday, if you remember. The example is given in the Zohar, that the king wants to test his son to see if his son is made of royal fiber, if his son can be a genuine king. A genuine king is a person that never thinks about himself. That's supposed to be a king. A king is a person that all he thinks about is the country. If he's a genuine king, and therefore he receives directions from God in order to conduct the country properly. That's what a king is supposed to be. He's supposed to be. The king is supposed to be a person that is closer to God, than everyone else. The king of France, the king of Spain, the king of whatever, and he is only interested in the good of the people. What's the good of the people? And as soon as the king starts thinking wrong, starts thinking of selfishly, then it's a bad king. Listen, according to Judaism, the ideal form of government is monarchy. That's the ideal. Because democracy means the people rule. In other words, you're putting the power to rule in the hands of those who are least talented to rule. They're supposed to be ruled. They don't know what's right. But we hope that through democracy, that God will put in the minds of the people the right thing. It'll come out the right way. At least democracy is better than a bad king. A bad king is unchecked. That's the whole point. Democracy has checks and balances. But a good king is the best thing because he decides to do what's right. And the people don't know what's right. The people can't decide, right? You can't. It's like taking a bus driver or something like that. And they ask the people, where would you like to go? Where would you like to go? Right? Let's take a vote where to go. What do you mean where to go? You're a bus. You're supposed to go to such and such a place. I got on the bus. Yeah, but I don't want to be the leader. I don't like this leader stuff. I'm no better than anybody else. Let's just, everybody decide. On a plane, everyone decide. Where do you want to go, people? That's ridiculous. You have to have a leader. So ideally, the king is supposed to be. So the king wants to know if his son is made of the same stuff as the king is. So he tests him. He wants to see is the king's son normal. So he gets a beautiful prostitute to try to entice his son to act like an animal, a normal animal, right? To go after his own pleasures. He'll find a hiding place to go where nobody will see him, and etc. And he'll be able to start to bribe people that they won't tell, and he'll bribe the prostitute also that she won't tell. Who knows what he's going to do? Where it's going to lead to, right? But what's the motivating factor is the king's son is thinking about himself, or will the king's son say, "Listen, I'm royalty. I can't just do what I want. I can't do what I want. As beautiful as you are, and as enticing as you are, and as luring as the whole thing that was promising as this thing would be. If I give in to my urges, I'm not going to do it because I can never give in to my urges. I'm the king's son. So therefore, what happens is the king send this prostitute. The prostitute wants the king's son to succeed, but she has to do a good job. She has to really, really try to get to the very essence of his animal soul and to make him act like an animal. So she doesn't really want that he should give in, and the king doesn't want his son to give in. He was the one who sent this prostitute, and it's bad for the king's son to give in. So nobody wants him to give in except his natural desires. And natural desires. Says the Rebbe, that's the whole world. God loves everybody, and he's put us in this terrible world in order to withstand it, that we should be like the king's son. And God does not want us to give in to our urges, and get angry and get depressed and be lustful and all these things. He doesn't want us to do it. But nevertheless, that's the world. So are we going to attach ourselves to the creator or the creation? That's the question. That's the question. It says, well, that's because God enlivens everything. Everything that exists and is alive comes from God. So how can there be bad in the world? And the Gemara answers, it's like the prostitute with the son of the king. So this whole world is like this prostitute is trying to drive us crazy, and sometimes in bad ways, and sometimes in lure us to get angry, lure us to this, to take money, to this, right? And this is Dabra Machaya, et called Araut. This is what enlivens everything that's bad, everything that's evil in the world, and the source above is Tov, is really good. But when Kishir Lamata, when it comes below, Al Derech Hishtalshlos, through the chain of creation of the worlds, which is described in very great detail in Chassidut, even greater detail in Kabbalah, is Nasa Be'emet Ra Gamor. Then this good, the king's desire to make his son stronger is a wonderful thing. But how does it manifest itself in the world? In this prostitute that's totally bad. If she succeeds, then the king's son is disqualified from being a king. It comes into this world, Ra Gomer, to be total bad. Badinim Gomorim, Hain Bamili, the Omo, rather in physical things or in spiritual things. Okay, I mean, listen, I think that God sort of overdid it. I mean, if you ask me, because you get like the Holocaust and these terrible things that happened to the Jews, you want to tell me that that was good? That in its source is really good? Well, I'm not going to say that, but the Rebbe is yes saying. The Rebbe is saying that in its source, it's really a good thing. How this could possibly be a good thing, I have absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea. And these things are bad, right? This is not just the prostitute that you do. She wants him to do something and then they're finished. Here we're talking about killing. All these boys get killed now, and then in the war just breaks your heart to see them in this war. It's just so crazy, right? Every day, every whatever you see beautiful young boys, right, and they're getting killed from in the army, fighting against these this Hamas, whatever. Who knows what's going on? But can you explain that? I can't explain it. I can't. I've gone to comfort some of the families that they lost their sons. Their sons. People told me there's nobody to comfort these families. Anyway, so I went and comforted, and it's just heartbreaking, and it's very difficult to even go. And I didn't lose anything, right? Just to see the suffering of these people, it's just terrible. Nevertheless, the Rebbe is saying that the fact is something good comes out of it. Something good comes out. I know that in Kfar Chabad there was a boy, a young kid. I knew him pretty well. He was a wonderful person. Anyway, he was a commander and he got killed in the army. And just now, a year ago, by a sniper. Anyway, he got killed. So of course everybody was broken, felt bad. But they said, listen, we can't just wallow in our sorrow. We have to, let's do something. We have to do something to honor. We have to fill the void that he's left now, the vacuum that this young man has left. So they built the whole synagogue over here for him, and and a lot of the young people in the Kfar that also were sort of not affiliated to any sort of they didn't have a crowd to identify with, as they started going there. So it became a really a really very, very good thing came out of this tragedy. I mean, it doesn't make the tragedy less of a tragedy, but it does encourage people to do something good that they hadn't done before. So it says, therefore, the bad things that happen in the world, somehow or other, this comes as unexplainable as they are, but nevertheless, the source of them is good, and we have to get to the source. That's what's called Michal. Michal Dechik, Shu Be'emet Chayut. Oh, here we go. 1 second. Shu Be'emet Chayuto Yitbrech. This is the thin, I say, cord of life that enlivens evil things that really comes from God. So what do you want to say over there? Hitler comes from God. And that, yeah, here we have a whole big and the Purim. Haman, right? Excuse me, I have somebody's thing is open here. Yes. Is everybody off now? Good. Okay. Yes, we have Haman is Bilam is written in the Torah, right? Bilam had the ability to destroy all the Jewish people. He had the ability. And there's a whole Torah portion, right? Which he's the big star. So all the bad things in the world, everything comes from God, but not as they are. It's a call to change. That's what it means serving God with Kol Meodecha. We say every day, it's a motto of Judaism. Listen, Jews, God is our God. God is one. You should love God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, all of your might. What does it mean, all of your might? All of your might means your whole entire being. Your whole entire being. Kamaimer, like it says, Tov Me'od, it says God saw everything that he made on the sixth day, and it was very good. Tov, this is the angel of life. Tov Me'od, this is the angel of death. Right? Good is the angel of life. Very good is the angel of death. Shu Tov Me'od, the angel of death is very good. Beli Shiur means Me'od means very good, means unlimited. Unlimited. Good, visible good is limited. Visible good is limited, right? You win $1 million, you win $20 million, you win $1 billion, you win $1 trillion, but it's limited, right? To connect to the source of money that's unlimited. What are you going to do with that? Okay, what are you going to do with $1 billion, $1 trillion? Something in the world you're going to do, right? Something in the world you're going to do with it. Connecting to the essence of God is giving you your purpose, why you're here in the world, right? You have $1 trillion. I have $1 million. I have $1 trillion. But who is the I? Who is the I? And not only that, you're limited to doing limited things in the world. What are you going to do? Invest, make more money, more money. So what are you going to do? More control, more. But what does it mean good? What does it mean bad? What is good? Just to connect to good, sometimes a person has to experience bad, first of all. Because everything in the world is really good, but it's a type of good that's so immense that it can't be, it's not, you can't interpret it as being good. It's very good. Very good means infinitely good. Let's say a person, they call them up and they say, you just won the world lottery. How much did I win? Infinite money. What does that mean, infinite money? I mean, tell me how much. $1 million, $1 trillion? No, infinite. All the money in the world belongs to you. Infinite money. So what am I going to do with all the infinite money? What am I going to do with it? Right? Well, you have to think. You get advisors. What am I supposed to do with? It doesn't make any sense. What am I supposed to do with the infinite money? That says, well, you can be happy. You look around. There's a lot of stories about that. Who does he find as happy? A person who's like sitting and fishing or something like that. He doesn't have any money. Doesn't have, he has enough money for a sandwich. He's happy, right? That's happiness. Wow. Ask the guy who's fishing, would you like to have $1 trillion? Of course I would. What's the question? And it could, so it ends up that sometimes not good things, which appear to be not good, they connect you to something which is higher than good. All the money in the world is good, but to be connected to God, to realize that's very good. And a lot of times the only thing that can connect a person in that way are negative things, bad things, tests, trials, difficulties. That King David said, look, if you look at the book of Psalms, that's the best. Book of Psalms, King David is always, always in trouble. That's what King David says, Yasar Yisrani Yudke, that God tortured me. But it's Yudke, the first two letters of God. Shu B'tchilat Hashem, these are the first two letters of God's name. Yitgaluto, the beginning of God's revelation. Shadayan Lo Boli Degila, that it's so high, the first two letters of God's name. God is creating the world. And all we can see is like the end of it, if we even believe it, the last letter of God's name. And here it's saying that, but through, King David was saying that through the fact that God has tortured me, as I am connected to the Yud-K, to the first two letters of God's name. This is an aspect of God, of reality, which is not understood, Adayan. Lo nitgal l'kol, it's not revealed. That's the whole idea of Nachum Ish Gamzu. Listen to this story. Nachum Ish Gamzu. This could be in the place of the story of the day, but it won't be. I'll tell you another story. The incredible story. Nachum Ish Gamzu. She'oyo Omar Gamzu l'tova. Nachum Ish Gamzu, he lived like he was one of the Tanaim, I say immediately after the temple. It was a very holy person, and he got his name. He used to say Gamzu. Gamzu means also this. Also, this is good. Also, this is good. Okay, what's the story of Nachum Ish Gamzu? I'll tell you in a quick way. There are two stories. There's one about Rabbi Akiva, and it's similar to this one, where bad things became good. But Nachum Ish Gamzu is even more. Here, let me tell you the story of Rabbi Akiva, first of all. Rabbi Akiva was came to a city. It was getting dark, and he went into the city, and they wouldn't allow him to sleep there. They wouldn't allow him to sleep there. Rabbi Akiva had a rooster with him to wake him up in the morning, and he had a donkey, and he had what else? What did he have? A donkey, and he had a rooster, and a donkey, and something else. I can't remember. Anyway, the rooster and the donkey is enough. So he had a rooster to wake him up in the night, and then he had a donkey also that he was riding on the donkey. And they wouldn't allow him to sleep in the town. They wouldn't allow him. They were cruel people in the town. They wouldn't allow him. They didn't want any guests, nowhere. So he had to sleep outside of the town. That's pretty bad luck. And then there came, in the middle of the night, a fox, killed the rooster. And then there came a lion, and killed the donkey. Oh, I know. And he had a lamp with a lamp that he had fire in the lamp that he could learn in the middle of the night, and a wind came and blew it out. When each one of these things happened, Rabbi Akiva said, everything that God does, He does for the good. It ended up in the middle of the night. He woke up in the middle of the night, or he woke up in the morning, and he saw that the whole town was up in flames. It ends up that thieves that came, the marauders, whatever it is, they attacked the town and they took everybody away, prisoners. They killed people and they took everybody. They stole everything. So Rabbi Akiva said, "Wow, if I had been in the town, then I would have been. Everything that happened really was for the good. If I had been in the town, then I would have been captured, or outside of the town. If I would have had a donkey, it would have brayed." And they would have caught me. The rooster would have crowed. They would have caught me. The light would have drawn their attention to me. So it ended up that all these things that happened were for good. For good. That's Rabbi Akiva's story. So Rabbi Akiva, everything that happened, he said, everything that God does, He does for the good. So Rabbi Akiva avoided bad. But here's a better story. Nachum Ish Gamzu. Nachum Ish Gamzu, the story is like this. Nachum Ish Gamzu was sent by the Jewish community to the Romans to ask them to repeal a decree. They made some sort of a decree against Torah learning or whatever. And they sent Nachum Ish Gamzu to try to appease the king. And they gave him a small box of diamonds, precious jewels, whatever. Now, the king doesn't need precious jewels and diamonds. He's got all the diamonds he wants to. But nevertheless, they figured it would be an appeasement. For them, it was a very big sacrifice to send this diamonds. So they sent him. He was an honorable elderly person, and they sent him to the king. It was a journey of a few days, and he stopped off in an inn. And the innkeeper noticed that he had this box that he was guarding. And as soon as Nachum Ish Gamzu went to sleep, so he had his sons, or he himself, stole the box, picked the lock, and filled the box up with sand so that he wouldn't notice, and put the box back. And sure enough, Nachum Ish Gamzu did not notice. Now his name is Nachum Ish Gamzu because anything that bad ever happened, if it happened to him, he would also say Gamzu Latova. This is also for good. This is also for good. So what happened? He went to the king and he said, "Your Majesty, I am a representative of the Jewish people. We're your humble servants. And you made a decree. We'd like you to consider to rescind the decree against learning Torah. And therefore we want to present you with this humble gift that, for us it's a tremendous sacrifice, but the king deserves everything." And opens it up and it's filled with sand. So the king said, "What is this sort of a joke, some of this?" So Nachum Ish Gamzu said, "Gamzu Latova. This is also for good," even though it was certainly not for good. I mean, he was going to get angry at the whole Jewish community and kill everybody, right? He angered the king. What are you bringing the king a box of sand for with it? So it says, all of a sudden, Elijah the prophet appeared in the form of a nobleman that the king had never seen before. The king was very impressed. "Who is this?" Said, "Your Majesty, please don't get angry at this Jew. He's a very simple person. This is the sand that his forefather Abraham used against his enemies." Abraham had to fight his enemies. There's a story in the Torah where Abraham fought against 5 kings, or the 4 kings. He fought against 4 kings. He fought again, and he defeated them. And fought the kings in order to get Lot back as well. So he said, "This is the sand that he used." Everybody knew about the Torah. Everybody knew about the stories. He says, this is the sand that Abraham used to defeat his enemies. Try it. And so he took some of it and he threw it, and it turned into like spears and darts and arrows and whatever. And he used it against one of his enemies, the king. And sure enough, it worked. And the king said to Nachum Ish Gamzu, "Listen, give me that box. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I got angry at you. Whatever you want, you can take." So he said, "All I want is just one thing, that decree. Just rescind the decree." And the king said, "I'll rescind the decree, and I'm going to fill up this box and 10 boxes like it with diamonds and jewels and everything. Take it back to the So he did. Okay, there's more to the story, but that's the main part of the story. That's the main part of the story. The main part of the story is that because the now diamonds, if you would have given the king diamonds like the Jewish people sent, right? The Jews sent diamonds to give to the king. Who knows if the king would have been impressed? The king there's infinite numbers of diamonds, but this sand, this was a special thing. The sand turned to bed. Okay, so what do we see? That the worst thing, what came out from the story, the worst thing possible did not, how do you say, break the heart of Nachum Ish Gamzu. It didn't make Nachum Ish Gamzu depressed, right? Immediately, as soon as that box opened up and he's standing in the presence of the king that can wipe out the Jewish people in 1 second, God forbid, right? You can, if he got, and the king got angry, that's it. We've reached the lowest point of all, right? The king of Rome, who controls the whole world, and certainly controls the Jewish people, as the king is angry now at the Jews because of me, because of Nachum Ish Gamzu. What did he say? This is good. Gamzu Latova. This is going to be good. And it ended up, it was better than good. So that's the idea of Tov Me'od. A bad thing, which was a bunch of dirt, that the king has dirt all over the place, right? It was even better than the diamonds. And so, okay, that's the end of Nachum Ish Gamzu. Shoya Omer, that he always used to say, this is also for good. Why? Because he would think deeply into everything, and he would realize that be'emes, really, in the source of evil, the source of bad, the source of tragedy, is really good. Ve'eviu lamaila, and he would elevate his consciousness, his awareness, which everybody can do, to its source. Lamakom ayin, where there's nothing, nothingness. V'sham or yochel, and from there he could change, like Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa said. Mishom l'shemen yadlik. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa was tremendously poor, and he came home, and his wife was very sad, and she said, "We don't have any oil for Shabbat to light the candles. All we have is," his wife or his daughter, "all we have is vinegar." And he said, I mean, listen, why does oil light? If you light, you have a wick, you put oil there, it lights. Why does it light? It says that's the laws of combustion. You know, who says that oil lights? Who says that oil is combustible? Why? Who made those laws of nature? Who passed them? Right? There's the government, the House of Representatives passed the laws of nature. No, God does. It says whoever made the law of nature that oil lights, is he's going to make the law that vinegar lights. It's the same thing. Who controls the world? God controls the world. And God listens to our prayers or our attitude. We change God's mind. That's the whole idea of prayer. That's the idea of prayer. When a person is in the body, in physical body, in this physical world, that the soul is in the body, it sovelet sorot. Buy a Jewish prayer book, look at it in English if you want, and look at, there's called the Shmon Esrei, there's the middle part of it, it's called the standing prayer, Amida, and it's just talking about problems, just problems. God, please take away the bad judges, please build Jerusalem, Jerusalem is destroyed, God, please send the Mashiach, God, please take away disease, God, please, there's all these troubles, Yisurim, that why do we pray about these things? Listen, it's a well-known thing. You can say, listen, if God does everything, God controls everything, right? So if Uncle Joe is sick, it means that God made him sick. So if God made him sick, I'm going to change it. That was, it says in the Gemara that the one of the big kings said, "Why, you Jewish people? Why do you give charity? You're going against God. God is doing everything." That's what you Jewish people are trying to teach us, that God is doing everything. So if God makes people poor, why do you try to change it? It says exactly the opposite. God makes people poor in order that we should change it. God makes problems in the world in order that we should pray. And this changes God's mind. That's the way God set up the world. Because a person is in the world and the body does not allow a person to serve God. Like the idea of exile. That in exile, God also gives success to evil people. That's the whole story of Purim, of Chanukah. Kach neshama, also the soul, muhrachas lechiot, has to enliven the body. There's such a thing as champions. There's such a thing as heroes. Heroism. What's heroism? The situation was difficult. The situation was terrible, and this person defied the situation, and he became a hero. He became a hero, right? So you can say, why is he a hero? I sat at home. I didn't have any problems. Why am I not a hero, right? Now he's finished with the war. He came back. He doesn't have any problems. What's the difference? It says because he killed the dragon. He met evil in face to face, and it aroused in him something that nobody else has: heroism. The whole intention of God is not for ourselves, but to elevate ourselves, to be a human being, to be real. Now, the fact of the matter is that you don't really need God for this principle. You don't really need God. There's a famous psychiatrist that I'm a very big fan of his, Professor Viktor Frankl, and he has a whole the whole method, which is totally different from anybody else. And he says that even a person that's an atheist, still you have conscience, you have courage to wake up who you really are, to come to a higher level of humanity, of living according to principles, true principles, instead of just living and being controlled by the world. But here the Rebbe is saying that there are principles, there's the source of these principles. There's attachment to the creator of everything, and that really transforms the world, not just transforms yourself. But Tzorech Levoraro, the world is impure, and you have to refine the world, just like silver Biad Tzoref in the hands of what's it called? They put it in a crucible. What are they called? A refiner, a refinery, such a thing. You discover a big discovery of gold or silver, and you have to refine it. They boil it, and they boil it, the good part goes up or comes down, whatever it does, right? As kol ma sheyesh taruvos yoter tzorich levar levan the havas eish yoter. The gold or silver or whatever that has more bad in it, so you have to work in it longer. Diamonds, right? They're found in the ground. You have to dig them up. You have to clean it off. You have to know how to say cut the diamonds, etc. Kain tzorich levorer aguf. Also, the body has to be refined and removed. You have to remove from it the yetzer hora, the selfish impulses, ulavio el shorish, to bring it to its source, like the example of the son of the king, the prince, with the prostitute, like we said before. The kol mashiesh taruvad ra, and more evil and bad that there is in the world, is therefore you have to work harder. You have to make the fire higher in order to refine it, to remove the dross from the gold. That's especially the idea of prayer. And this is where we'll stop for today. Okay, so what is the Rebbe saying? What's the Rebbe trying to point out to us? That the whole world is here for us to fix it up. And one way to do it is, first of all, we have to fix ourselves up. And in order to do that, a lot of times, God presents us with difficulties, and no one wants, we pray to God that we shouldn't have difficulties, because they're difficulties, they're bad. That is Judaism. Abraham was the first Jew because he withstood 10 tests, 10 difficulties, 10 terrible, the challenges that God made. God gave to Abraham. That's the basis of Judaism, to take this world and to transform it. And therefore there are bad things in the world. And we're going to see that's the whole idea of the serpent putting it on the snake, means elevating the bad, and that we're going to get to tomorrow. But the point is, whenever, God forbid, negative things happen to you in your life, so you have to think, why is God doing this to me? There must be some good point in this, right? First of all, let's try to ignore the bad side and look for something good in it, or invent something good in it. Like I said about the young man that was killed, the soldier that was in Kfar Chabad that was killed. So you have to do something to fill the vacuum, to do twice as much as he could do, 10 times as much. So something good came out of something bad. as we will talk about more, God willing. And that's the whole point of Judaism, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's go. Here we go. Stop the share. Stop the recording.